4-year-old Lily Martinez was playing in her grandmother's backyard garden in rural East Texas when the 6-foot diamondback rattlesnake emerged from beneath the old wooden porch, its massive triangular head and distinctive warning rattle immediately identifying the deadly predator that was now coiled within striking distance of the unsuspecting child who had been picking wildflowers for her abuela. The snake's aggressive posture and defensive rattling indicated that the toddler had accidentally cornered one of North America's most venomous serpents in a confined space where escape was impossible. "Abuela, help me!" Lily screamed as the massive rattlesnake raised its head to striking position, its hollow fangs loaded with enough venom to kill an adult human within minutes, and certainly lethal to a 30-pound child who had nowhere to run. That's when destiny roared down the dusty road. Jake Steele Morrison, a former Marine Corps scout sniper riding alone on his way to visit his brother's grave, heard something that made every combat instinct in his war-trained mind explode into action. The unmistakable sound of a child's terror, combined with the deadly warning rattle that every Texan learned to fear from childhood. This battle-scarred warrior was about to face the most precise rescue of his life, where 60 seconds would determine whether an innocent child lived or died, proving that real heroes don't hesitate when death is measured in heartbeats. Would you like to join us for this incredible journey? Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss what happens next. Jake Steele Morrison had been riding the back roads of East Texas for over 8 years, his solitary motorcycle journey serving as both pilgrimage to his fallen Marine brothers and therapy for the combat trauma that traditional treatment had never fully resolved. At 42 years old, the former Marine Corps scout sniper carried the visible scars of 2 tours in Iraq and the invisible wounds that came from watching good men die in places most Americans couldn't pronounce. Steele was approaching the small town of Marshall on his monthly ride to visit Corporal Danny Martinez's grave, a Marine brother who had died saving Steele's life during the Battle of Fallujah, when his combat-honed hearing detected something that made every alarm in his tactical awareness system detonate simultaneously. The combination of a child's terrified scream and the distinctive buzzing rattle of a large, venomous snake was unmistakable to someone who had survived in desert environments where such sounds meant immediate life-or-death situations. Without hesitation, Steele pulled his Harley off the rural road and began moving toward the source of the danger. There was no time to call for help, no opportunity to develop a tactical plan, no moment to consider the risks. Somewhere nearby, a child was about to die from one of the most horrific deaths imaginable if someone didn't act within seconds. The diamondback rattlesnake that was threatening 4-year-old Lily Martinez represented one of nature's most efficient killing machines, capable of striking at 2/3 its body length with lightning speed, delivering venom that would cause massive tissue damage, internal bleeding, and respiratory failure. At 6 feet long and weighing over 10 pounds, this particular serpent was large enough to kill multiple adults with a single bite. Steele's Marine training engaged as he processed the tactical nightmare developing 50 feet ahead of him. A child trapped by a venomous snake in a confined area represented the kind of impossible rescue scenario that required perfect timing, flawless execution, and the willingness to sacrifice everything to protect innocent life against natural force that could kill in minutes. Moving through the backyard with the silent precision that had kept him alive through countless combat operations, Steele reached a position where he could observe the life-or-death situation that was developing. What he saw confirmed his worst fears. Lily Martinez stood paralyzed with terror as the massive diamondback held striking position between her and every possible escape route. The child's bright yellow sundress, with small sunflower patterns, made her clearly visible against the brown dirt and green vegetation of her grandmother's garden. Her tiny hands still clutched a bouquet of wildflowers she had been gathering, bluebonnets, Indian paintbrush and wild daisies that now seemed tragically innocent given the mortal danger she faced. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. The tactical situation Steele faced was unlike anything in his military experience. Unlike combat operations where he had sniper rifles, team support, and operational planning, this rescue would depend entirely on split-second timing, improvised weapons, and the precision that had made him one of the Marine Corps' deadliest marksmen. Lily's complete stillness was the only thing preventing the rattlesnake from triggering its lightning-fast strike. The serpent was displaying classic defensive behavior, its thick body coiled in perfect striking position, while its tail rattled a warning that could be heard 50 yards away. The diamond-shaped patterns along its back were clearly visible, marking this as a mature western diamondback rattlesnake, one of the most aggressive and venomous species in North America. Assessment: one child, 4 years old, approximately 30 pounds, completely helpless. Steele analyzed silently, as his marine training automatically processed the situation. One diamondback rattlesnake, mature adult, approximately 6 feet long, coiled in optimal striking position, no backup, no proper equipment, approximately 60 seconds before the child moves or the snake strikes. The reptile's behavior indicated this was not an aggressive hunt, but defensive positioning. The snake wanted to escape the confrontation, but Lily's position was blocking its retreat route to the safety of the space beneath the porch, creating the kind of standoff that typically ended with a defensive strike that would inject enough venom to kill the perceived threat. Steele's eyes swept the immediate area, cataloging potential weapons and tactical advantages with the same systematic precision he had used to analyze combat zones in Iraq. The backyard was typical of rural East Texas, well-maintained but functional, with garden tools, outdoor furniture, and various household items that could potentially serve as improvised weapons. A wooden-handled garden hoe leaned against the porch railing, approximately 8 feet from his position. The tool's blade appeared sharp and heavy enough to deliver a killing blow, while its 3-foot handle would allow him to engage the rattlesnake from just outside its maximum striking range. Range to target, 12 feet. Snake striking distance, approximately 4 feet. Tool acquisition time, 6 seconds. Engagement window, 8 to 10 seconds maximum. Steele calculated with the same methodical approach he had used to plan sniper shots in hostile territory. The critical variable was Lily's ability to remain motionless. At 4 years old, her capacity to control her fear and follow instructions was limited. Steele could see the terror in her dark brown eyes, the slight trembling in her small frame that indicated she was reaching the limits of her self-control. Steele made the decision that would define the next 60 seconds of his life. He began moving toward the rattlesnake, knowing that his intervention would almost certainly result in the serpent striking at him instead of Lily, but understanding that an adult Marine with combat experience had better survival chances than a 4-year-old child. 60 seconds to execute, Steele reminded himself, recalling the sniper training that had taught him to accomplish impossible shots under extreme pressure. 1 shot, 1 kill, 0 margin for error. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Steele asked himself as he prepared for the most precise action of his military and civilian life, knowing that failure meant watching a child die from one of the most agonizing deaths possible. The diamondback's acute senses detected Steele's approach before Lily was aware of any potential rescue. The serpent's triangular head rotated toward the new sound, its forked tongue flicking rapidly as it processed the presence of an adult human entering the conflict zone. The snake's rattle increased in intensity, creating a sound like maracas being shaken by invisible hands. Steele understood that he had perhaps 30 seconds before the rattlesnake would either strike at Lily to eliminate the perceived threat or shift its attention to him as the larger danger. Every instinct from his military training told him to create maximum disruption, while positioning himself for the precision action that would determine success or failure. "Lily, listen to me very carefully," Steele called to the child, his voice carrying the calm authority that had controlled life-or-death situations in combat zones around the world. "I'm going to help you, but you need to stay very, very still. Can you do that for me?" Lily nodded without speaking, her 4-year-old mind processing that the scary man with the motorcycle was trying to help her against something much more dangerous than any stranger could be. Her grandmother had taught her about snakes, explaining that the rattling sound meant immediate danger and that she should never approach or try to run from a coiled serpent. "That's a good girl," Steele continued, using the same calm tone he had employed when talking wounded Marines through medical procedures under fire. "I know you're scared, but you're being very brave. Just keep standing still while I take care of the snake. And Dee, if you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep?" The intervention that followed would be studied by herpetologists and tactical experts for years to come. Steele's sniper training had taught him that precision under pressure required perfect timing, optimal positioning, and the ability to control every variable in a complex situation. Moving with the silent efficiency that had kept him alive through 2 combat tours, Steele repositioned himself to access the garden hoe while maintaining visual contact with both Lily and the Diamondback. The tool was heavier than he had expected. A well-made implement with a sharp steel blade that could deliver devastating force when properly applied. "Time check, 45 seconds remaining," Steele calculated as he moved into position, understanding that Lily's ability to remain motionless was limited by her age and growing terror. Single engagement opportunity must be decisive. The garden hoe felt familiar in his hands, not unlike the entrenching tools he had used during military operations, but longer and with a different weight distribution. Steele made microscopic adjustments to his grip, ensuring optimal control and power delivery for the critical strike he was about to attempt. Moving with the silent precision that had made him one of the Corps' most effective scout snipers, Steele positioned himself at an angle that would allow him to strike the rattlesnake's head while keeping Lily out of the potential path of a defensive strike. The geometry was critical, too close, and he would enter the snake's striking range; too far, and he wouldn't be able to deliver a killing blow. The Diamondback had now become fully aware of Steele's presence, its attention divided between the small, stationary threat and the larger, moving danger. The serpent's head tracked Steele's movements, while its body remained coiled in perfect striking position, creating a tactical situation where the snake could attack either target within seconds. "Target geometry optimal," Steele whispered, employing the breathing control and muscle memory that had enabled him to make impossible shots under combat conditions. "Wind speed negligible. Lighting adequate. Single engagement opportunity." The critical moment came when Steele realized that the Diamondback was beginning to shift its attention toward him, creating a tactical opportunity where the serpent's head would be turned away from Lily for approximately 2 seconds, enough time for a perfectly timed strike if executed with sniper-level precision. This was the moment that would define everything. Steele had made similar calculations thousands of times during his military career, but never with a child's life hanging in the balance, and never using improvised weapons against a target that could kill him with a single defensive strike. "Target acquired," Steele whispered, employing the same pre-shot routine he had used to eliminate enemy combatants at distances of over 1,000 yards. Breathing controlled, muscle tension optimal, timing synchronized. The Diamondback's head was now angled away from Lily at precisely the optimal angle for Steele's intervention. The snake's attention was focused on the larger perceived threat, creating a 2-second window where a perfect strike could eliminate the danger without endangering the child. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1. The strike was executed with the kind of precision that only years of military training could provide. Steel brought the garden hoe down with devastating force, the sharp steel blade crushing the rattlesnake's head with surgical accuracy while simultaneously positioning his body between the dying serpent and Lily. The impact was immediate and decisive. The diamondback's thick body convulsed reflexively as its nervous system shut down, but the creature was effectively dead from the moment of contact. Steel had delivered the killing blow with the same precision he had used to eliminate enemy snipers from distances measured in hundreds of yards. "Threat neutralized," Steel announced as the decapitated snake's body continued writhing reflexively, a normal post-mortem response that would continue for several minutes. "Lily, you can move now. Come toward me slowly." The entire engagement had lasted 58 seconds from Steele's arrival to threat elimination, 2 seconds under his mental deadline, and fast enough to prevent the child from being bitten by one of Texas's deadliest predators. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. Lily Martinez ran to Steele with the relief that only a child who had faced death could experience, her 4-year-old arms wrapping around the legs of the man who had saved her life with military precision and split-second timing. The wildflowers she had been gathering were scattered across the ground, their bright colors a stark contrast to the dark reality of what had almost occurred. "The snake was going to hurt me," Lily said, with the simple honesty of childhood, her voice still shaky from the terror she had experienced. "But you made it go away." "That's right, sweetheart," Steele replied gently as he picked up the child and carried her away from the scene, his combat-hardened heart melting at the trust this innocent child was showing him. "You're safe now. The snake can't hurt you anymore." Steele's hands were steady as he held Lily, but inside his mind, he was processing what had just occurred. For the first time since his discharge from the Marines, he had used his military training for something purely positive, saving an innocent life without taking one in combat. The precision that had made him a deadly sniper had been transformed into a tool for protection rather than destruction. Lily's grandmother, Elena Martinez, emerged from the house 40 seconds later, having heard the commotion but unable to reach the backyard before Steele's intervention was complete. The 70-year-old woman's face went white as she saw the dead rattlesnake and realized how close she had come to losing her granddaughter. Elena had been preparing lunch in the kitchen when she heard Lily's scream, but by the time she reached the back door, the confrontation was already over. The sight of a leather-clad stranger holding her granddaughter while a massive dead snake lay nearby created a moment of confusion that quickly transformed into overwhelming gratitude. "Dios mío," Elena whispered as she saw the dead rattlesnake and realized how close she had come to losing Lily. "How can I thank you? You saved my baby's life." "Mum, I was just in the right place at the right time," Steele replied with the humility that military service had taught him. "Lily was very brave and followed instructions perfectly." Elena's hands shook as she reached for her granddaughter, her mind struggling to process what could have happened if this stranger hadn't appeared. She had lived in East Texas her entire life and had seen the devastating effects of rattlesnake bites, the massive tissue damage, the excruciating pain, the potential for death even with immediate medical treatment. "I heard her scream and was trying to get to her," Elena explained, tears streaming down her weathered face. "But you were already here, already helping her. God sent you to protect my little angel." Steele felt uncomfortable with the religious interpretation of his actions, but he understood that Elena was processing trauma in her own way. His Marine training had taught him that people responded to crisis differently, and he wasn't going to argue with a grandmother who had almost lost her granddaughter to a venomous snake. "What's your name?" Eleanor asked as she held Lily tightly, her grandmother's instinct to know everything about the man who had saved her family. "Jake Morrison, ma'am, but most people call me Steele." "Steele," Elena repeated, testing the name. "Like the strength that saved my granddaughter. Tell me, "Have you ever saved someone?" Elena Martinez asked Steele, her voice filled with awe at the precision and courage this stranger had shown for her granddaughter. The emergency response that followed brought paramedics, local law enforcement, and wildlife officials to assess the situation and ensure that Lily had suffered no injuries from her encounter with the venomous snake. The rural location meant that response times were longer than in urban areas, but Steele's immediate intervention had eliminated the time pressure that could have made the difference between life and death. Deputy Sheriff Michael Rodriguez was the first official responder to arrive, his cruiser pulling into the Martinez driveway 25 minutes after Elena had called 911. The veteran law enforcement officer had seen numerous rattlesnake encounters during his 15 years patrolling rural East Texas, and he immediately recognized the significance of what had occurred. "Ma'am, you said someone killed the snake?" Deputy Rodriguez asked Elena as he assessed the scene. "This man," Elena replied, indicating Steele. "He saved Lily's life with a garden hoe. The snake was about to bite her." Deputy Rodriguez examined the dead diamondback with professional interest, noting the precision of the killing blow and the positioning that had protected the child from any potential defensive strike. His training in wildlife encounters had taught him to recognize the signs of a life-threatening situation that had been resolved through expert intervention. "Sir, I need to ask you a few questions about what happened here," Deputy Rodriguez said to Steele, his tone respectful rather than interrogatory. Steele provided a detailed account of his intervention, describing his assessment of the tactical situation and the decision-making process that had led to his use of lethal force against the rattlesnake. His military background was evident in the precision and accuracy of his report. "You did exactly the right thing," Deputy Rodriguez concluded after hearing Steele's account. "That was a mature diamondback in defensive position. The child would have been bitten if you hadn't intervened." Dr. Patricia Rodriguez, the emergency physician who examined Lily when the ambulance arrived 30 minutes later, was impressed by her resilience and her positive response to Steele's intervention. The child showed no physical injuries, but displayed signs of severe shock that would require careful monitoring and possibly counseling. "Lily shows remarkable emotional stability considering what she experienced," Dr. Rodriguez observed as she completed her medical examination. "Her trust in Mr. Morrison suggests that she understands he represents safety and protection." Indeed, the pediatric assessment revealed that Lily's vital signs were stable and that she had suffered no physical trauma from the encounter. However, the psychological impact of facing death from a venomous snake would require ongoing evaluation and support to ensure her complete recovery. Children who survive encounters with venomous snakes often develop lasting fears that can affect their willingness to play outdoors, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Elena. But Lily's positive response to her rescuer suggests that she may process this experience differently than typical victims. 6 months after his 60-second encounter with the diamondback rattlesnake while rescuing Lily Martinez, Jake Steele Morrison had transformed from a solitary veteran struggling with survivor's guilt and purpose into a confident community protector who had found his true calling in civilian life. The precise action that had saved Lily's life had also awakened Steele's soul, giving him meaning and direction that had been missing since his military discharge. Steele sat in Lily's family living room in Marshall, Texas, reviewing the latest venomous snake safety reports while 4-year-old Lily worked on a coloring book at the coffee table, chattering happily about her day at preschool. The modest frame house on Elm Street had become his second home, and the Martinez family had become the family he had never had during his years of military service and post-combat isolation. The living room reflected the warm, traditional values of a Mexican-American family that had lived in East Texas for 3 generations. Religious icons shared wall space with family photographs, while the scent of Elena's homemade tortillas drifted from the kitchen where she prepared the weekly meal that had become a sacred tradition for their extended family. The snake bite prevention program is showing incredible results, Steele reported to Lily's parents, Miguel and Rosa Martinez, as he studied the latest emergency response data from the Texas Department of Health. Snake bite incidents in East Texas are down 55% since we implemented the community education and rapid response protocols. The statistical improvement represented real lives saved, and families spared the trauma that the Martinez family had experienced. Steele had discovered that his military precision and tactical thinking could be applied to civilian protection in ways he had never imagined during his combat service. Lily looked up from her coloring book, a picture of flowers that reminded Steele of the wildflowers she had been gathering when he first met her, and smiled at him with the unconditional affection that only children could provide. "Steele, will you teach me more about keeping safe from snakes tomorrow?" "Of course, little one," Steele replied, his voice carrying a gentleness that his Marine brothers would have found surprising. "We'll practice snake identification and emergency response skills." The relationship between Lily and Steele had evolved far beyond the dramatic rescue that had brought them together. The 4-year-old had become the inspiration for Steele's transformation from isolated veteran to community leader, while Steele had provided the kind of protective presence that had helped Lily process her trauma and develop remarkable courage for her age. Elena Martinez emerged from the kitchen carrying a platter of fresh tamales, her face beaming with the satisfaction of feeding people she loved. At 73 years old, she had become Steele's surrogate mother, providing the kind of unconditional acceptance and family warmth that had been missing from his life since his parents' death in a car accident 15 years earlier. "Mijo, you eat too skinny," Elena scolded gently as she placed extra tamales on Steele's plate. "A man who saves children needs to be strong." "Yes, ma'am," Steele replied with mock seriousness that made Lily giggle. "I'll do my best to follow your orders." The easy family banter represented a kind of healing that Steele had never experienced through traditional therapy or medical intervention. The Martinez family had accepted him completely, not as a damaged veteran or a hero, but as a family member who belonged with them. "Tell me about the Lily Martinez Snake Safety Foundation," her father Miguel requested, noting the detailed program materials spread across Steele's briefcase related to the non-profit organization that had been established to prevent other children from facing the danger Lily had survived. Miguel Martinez had aged visibly in the months since Lily's encounter with the Diamondback. The near loss of his daughter had awakened him to dangers he had previously ignored or minimized, transforming him from a casual father into a protective advocate who wanted to ensure no other family experienced what his had endured. "We're now operating venomous snake safety education programs throughout East Texas and expanding into Louisiana and Arkansas," Steele explained with the enthusiasm of someone who had found his life's work. "Lily's experience showed me that children can survive impossible situations when adults are prepared to act decisively, but more importantly, it showed me that most snake encounters can be prevented through proper education and habitat management." The Foundation's work had grown beyond Steele's initial vision of basic safety education to encompass comprehensive rural safety programs that addressed multiple environmental hazards while building community resilience and emergency response capabilities. Rosa Martinez, Lily's mother, had been transformed by her daughter's near-death experience from a working mother focused on daily survival into a passionate advocate for child safety education. Her background as a preschool teacher had proven invaluable for developing age-appropriate safety curricula that could reach children throughout the region. "We've trained over 1,200 families in the past 6 months," Rosa reported, consulting her carefully maintained records. "Children from ages 3 to 12, parents, grandparents, teachers, and community leaders. Everyone who completes our program receives certification in basic snake safety and emergency response. The Lily Martinez Snake Safety Foundation represented something unprecedented in rural safety education. A single combat veteran using his military precision and tactical expertise to develop snakebite prevention programs that could save lives while training other veterans to serve as rapid response specialists in areas where traditional emergency services were inadequate. The foundation's success had attracted attention from Texas state agencies, federal wildlife services, and veteran organizations throughout the South, who wanted to understand how Steele's model could be replicated in other rural areas where venomous snakes posed similar threats to civilian populations. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. Dr. Sarah Chen, the trauma therapist who had been working with both Lily and Steele since the rattlesnake encounter, was amazed by their mutual healing and growth. Her office in nearby Longview had become a neutral space where both the child and the veteran could process their shared experience and develop strategies for using their survival story to help others. Both Lily and Jake have demonstrated remarkable recovery from what should have been a permanently traumatizing experience, she reported during a presentation to the Texas Association of Rural Psychology. Their relationship shows how shared survival experiences can create therapeutic bonds that exceed what traditional counseling can achieve. Dr. Chen's clinical observations had documented a phenomenon that challenged conventional understanding of trauma recovery. Instead of being damaged by their encounter with mortal danger, both Lily and Steele had been strengthened and motivated to help others avoid similar threats. The secret to both Lily's and Steele's remarkable healing was their understanding that survival carried responsibilities. Lily had learned that she could be brave and trust good adults during scary situations, while Steele had discovered that his military training made him uniquely qualified to protect civilians from threats that traditional law enforcement and emergency services couldn't address effectively. In most cases, civilians who survive life-threatening encounters develop anxiety, avoidance behaviors, and long-term psychological distress, Dr. Chen explained to her professional colleagues. But when survival is followed by purposeful action that helps others, the traumatic experience becomes transformed into a source of strength and meaning. Steele's weekly sessions with Dr. Chen had evolved from traditional PTSD treatment into strategic planning sessions for expanding the Foundation's programs and developing new approaches to veteran community service that could provide healing through civilian protection missions. Dr. Chen's research had documented measurable improvements in Steele's PTSD symptoms, depression, social isolation, and sense of purpose that correlated directly with his involvement in snake safety education and his role as Lily's protector and mentor. Steele's transformation demonstrates that combat veterans can find healing through civilian service missions that apply their military training to community protection. Dr. Chen explained to veterans services professionals studying innovative approaches to PTSD treatment. When veterans understand that their tactical skills can save lives in peacetime, it provides purpose and meaning that traditional therapy often can't achieve. The therapeutic model that had emerged from Steele and Lily's relationship was being studied by trauma specialists, veteran services organizations, and child psychologists throughout the country who wanted to understand how shared survival experiences could be transformed into community service programs. Tell me, have you ever saved someone, Doctor? Chen asked Steele during one of their sessions, encouraging him to process the broader implications of his rescue intervention and its impact on his sense of identity and purpose. Steele had become Lily's personal safety instructor, using his military precision training to teach her snake awareness and emergency response skills, while also serving as her guide for understanding how preparation and quick thinking could overcome fear and helplessness. Their training sessions occurred twice weekly in the Martinez backyard, which had been converted into a safe learning environment where Lily could develop practical skills without being reminded of the trauma she had survived in that same location. Lily's not just learning snake safety. She's learning to be aware of her environment and to trust her instincts, Steele explained to child safety professionals who observed their training sessions. She understands that knowing about dangers makes her stronger, not more scared. The safety training that Lily received was adapted for her age and developmental level, but it included real skills that could save her life if she encountered dangerous wildlife in the rural Texas environment where such encounters were common. Steele's military background allowed him to break complex tactical concepts into simple lessons that a 4-year-old could understand and remember. First rule, always watch where you step and where you put your hands, Steele taught Lily as they practiced basic awareness skills. Snakes like to hide in places that are dark and cool. Like under the porch where the bad snake was hiding? Lily asked, demonstrating her ability to connect abstract lessons with concrete experiences. Exactly right, Steele confirmed. That's why we always look before we reach into dark places. The training sessions had become therapeutic for both participants. Lily gained confidence and practical skills, while Steele experienced the satisfaction of teaching and protecting rather than the destruction that had characterized his military service. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? Miguel Martinez, Lily's father, had been so impressed by Steele's dedication to his daughter's safety and his expertise in emergency response that he had left his job at the lumber mill to become the foundation's operations director, applying his mechanical skills and local knowledge to scaling Steele's safety programs. Miguel's decision to leave steady employment had been difficult for the family financially, but the near loss of Lily had changed his priorities permanently. His work at the lumber mill had provided security and routine, but Steele's foundation offered the opportunity to help protect other families from experiencing what his had endured. Steele showed our family what real heroism looks like, Miguel explained during community presentations about the foundation's work. When he saved Lily from that rattlesnake, he wasn't thinking about recognition or reward. He was thinking about protecting an innocent child. That's the kind of character our communities need more of. Miguel's practical background had been crucial for developing the foundation's equipment and infrastructure, including mobile response units, educational materials, and the logistical support needed to serve rural communities throughout East Texas, where resources were limited and distances were vast. The mobile response units were converted pickup trucks equipped with anti-venom supplies, emergency medical equipment, communication systems, and educational materials that could bring snake safety programs directly to communities that lacked access to traditional emergency services. We can't wait for people to come to us for training, Miguel explained to county health officials. Many rural families live 30 or 40 miles from the nearest hospital. If someone gets bitten by a venomous snake, we need to be able to reach them within minutes, not hours. The mobile units represented Steele's military logistics thinking applied to civilian emergency response. Each vehicle was strategically positioned to provide maximum coverage for the rural areas where venomous snake encounters were most likely to occur. Rosa Martinez had used her background as a preschool teacher to develop age-appropriate snake safety curricula that taught children awareness and prevention skills while building their confidence and decision-making abilities. Rosa's educational programs addressed a critical gap in rural child safety education. Traditional school curricula rarely included practical survival skills, leaving children vulnerable to environmental hazards that were common in their daily lives. Children like Lily face dangers that adults often overlook or don't prepare them for, Rosa explained to education conferences throughout East Texas. Our programs teach children practical skills for recognizing and avoiding dangerous situations, while also educating adults about creating safer environments. Drill. The youth education programs included instruction in snake identification, habitat awareness, emergency response, and most importantly, how to stay calm and seek adult help when facing frightening situations. Rosa's teaching methodology emphasized hands-on learning that engaged children's natural curiosity while building practical skills. Children learned to identify venomous snakes through games and activities that made safety education fun rather than frightening. Learning about snakes doesn't make children afraid of going outside, Rosa explained to parents who worried about the psychological impact of safety education. It makes them confident because they know how to be safe. Lily had become the program's primary student demonstrator, showing other children that learning about dangers could make them feel safer and more confident rather than more scared. Her participation in educational presentations throughout Texas had inspired hundreds of children to take safety education seriously. When Lily tells other kids about staying calm and getting help from good adults, they listen because she's actually been in a scary situation and knows that adults can keep them safe, Rosa observed during program evaluations. She's living proof that children can be brave and smart when they need to be. And Pito, if you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. The foundation had attracted the attention of other combat veterans who were struggling with post-military transition issues and seeking meaningful ways to apply their training to civilian service. Within 8 months, 15 veterans had joined STEEL's programs, creating the core of what would become the Texas Venom Response Network. The veteran recruitment had occurred organically, as word spread through informal military networks about STEEL's successful transition from isolated PTSD sufferer to community leader. Veterans who had served with STEEL, or knew people who had served with him, began contacting the foundation to learn about volunteer opportunities. Staff Sergeant Rick Doc Patterson, a former Army Special Forces medic who'd been struggling with PTSD and unemployment since his discharge 18 months earlier, found new purpose as the Foundation's medical coordinator. Doc's military medical training made him uniquely qualified to develop rapid response protocols for treating venomous snake bites in rural environments where traditional emergency services were inadequate. Working with STEEL and Lily showed me that my military medical training could save civilian lives, Doc explained during his orientation presentation to new Foundation volunteers. Every time we respond to snake bites or train communities, we're preventing tragedies and giving families hope. Doc's integration into the Foundation's work had been seamless, with his medical expertise complementing STEEL's tactical training to create comprehensive emergency response capabilities that exceeded anything available through traditional rural emergency services. Captain Derek Viper Williams, a former Marine officer who had been isolated and depressed since his discharge, became the Foundation's reptile specialist after completing extensive training in venomous snake behavior and anti-venin administration. Viper's military leadership experience made him valuable for coordinating complex operations involving multiple volunteers and community partners. Lily's rescue taught me that we can use our tactical training to protect people from natural threats, not just human enemies, Viper explained to veteran groups interested in community service opportunities. Military precision and attention to detail are exactly what civilian protection requires. The veteran recruitment had created a brotherhood focused on civilian protection that provided both purpose for struggling former military personnel and enhanced capabilities for the snake safety programs. Each veteran brought specialized skills that expanded the Foundation's ability to serve rural communities throughout the region. The therapeutic benefits of the Foundation's work for participating veterans had been documented by Dr. Chen and other mental health professionals studying innovative approaches to PTSD treatment and veteran reintegration. Veterans who participate in civilian protection missions show measurably better outcomes than those who receive traditional therapy alone, Dr. Chen reported to the Veterans Administration. The sense of purpose and community that comes from using military training to help civilians appears to be more effective than conventional approaches to veteran mental health. Master Sergeant Tony Scout Rodriguez, a former Army Ranger who had been unemployed and struggling with alcoholism since his discharge, applied his reconnaissance training to developing a network of community monitoring systems that tracked venomous snake activity and habitat changes throughout East Texas. Scout's intelligence gathering skills had proven invaluable for identifying patterns in snake behavior that could predict when and where dangerous encounters were most likely to occur. His work had led to the development of early warning systems that allowed communities to prepare for seasonal increases in snake activity. We use military surveillance techniques to identify areas where venomous snakes are most likely to threaten civilian populations, Scout explained to county health officials who were impressed by the accuracy of his predictions. Early warning systems can prevent encounters like lilies by alerting communities to increased reptile activity. DTU, the monitoring network, had documented dozens of venomous snake sightings and seasonal movement patterns, allowing communities to implement preventive measures and increase awareness during high-risk periods. Scout's personal transformation had been remarkable, from a veteran struggling with substance abuse and depression to a valued community member whose work protected families throughout the region. His success had become a model for other veterans seeking meaningful ways to apply their military training to civilian service. Sergeant First Class Carlos "Thunder" Martinez, a former Air Force pararescue specialist who had been working construction jobs since his discharge, established rapid response teams that could provide immediate medical assistance to snakebite victims in rural areas where traditional ambulance services might take hours to arrive. Thunder's pararescue background had prepared him for exactly the kind of high-stakes medical emergencies that venomous snake bites represented in rural environments. His training in emergency medicine under extreme conditions made him ideally suited for developing rapid response protocols that could save lives. Traditional emergency response in rural Texas operates on response times that can be fatal for venomous snakebite victims, Thunder explained to emergency medical services conferences throughout the region. Our teams position themselves strategically and can respond to snakebite emergencies with antivenin and advanced medical care in minutes rather than hours. The rapid response teams operated from strategically positioned bases throughout East Texas, with each team equipped with antivenin, advanced medical equipment, and communication systems that allowed for immediate coordination with hospital emergency rooms. The rapid response capability had already saved several lives, including 2 children and 3 adults who had been bitten by venomous snakes in remote areas where conventional emergency services would have arrived too late to prevent death or permanent injury. We've had 7 successful interventions in the past 4 months, Thunder reported during a Foundation board meeting. Response times averaged 12 minutes from initial contact to antivenom administration. All patients survived without permanent complications. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Steele asked potential veteran recruits during Foundation orientation sessions, challenging them to understand how their military training could serve civilian protection missions. The question had become Steele's standard method for helping veterans understand the connection between their military service and civilian community protection. Many veterans struggled with the transition from military to civilian life because they couldn't see how their specialized training applied to peacetime situations. Every skill you learned in the military has civilian applications, Steele explained to veteran groups throughout Texas. Medical training saves lives, tactical thinking solves problems, leadership experience guides communities, and precision execution prevents tragedies. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? The annual Lily Martinez Day celebration had become the largest rural safety event in East Texas, bringing together thousands of families whose lives had been touched by Lily's story or the Foundation's snake safety programs. The event commemorated not just her rescue from the diamondback rattlesnake, but Steele's transformation from isolated veteran to community protector. The celebration took place in Marshall's City Park, with displays, demonstrations, and presentations that educated families about snake safety while honoring the volunteers who made the Foundation's work possible. Local businesses donated food, supplies, and prizes, while state and federal agencies provided educational materials and expert speakers. 6 months ago, a big snake almost killed me, and a Marine I didn't know saved my life in 60 seconds. Lily addressed the enormous crowd during the anniversary celebration, speaking with remarkable poise for someone so young. Today, Steele and our Foundation family teach thousands of families how to be safe around snakes and help each other when scary things happen. Lily's speech had been carefully prepared with Rosa's help, but her delivery was natural and heartfelt. The crowd of over 3,000 people listened in complete silence as the 4-year-old described her experience and the work that had grown from it. The celebration included snake safety demonstrations using non-venomous species, emergency response training for families and community volunteers, educational presentations by herpetologists and medical professionals, and testimonials from families who had used safety skills to prevent or survive dangerous encounters. 5-year-old Marcus Chen shared his experience using Lily's safety training during a family camping trip in Caddo Lake State Park. When we found a snake near our tent, I remembered what Lily taught us about backing away slowly and calling for help. My dad used the emergency radio to contact the Foundation team, and they identified it as a harmless snake and relocated it safely. Marcus's successful snake encounter using techniques taught in Lily's programs embodied everything the young girl and Steele were working to achieve through their safety education initiatives. His family had been able to enjoy their camping trip without fear because they had the knowledge and resources to handle wildlife encounters appropriately. 6-year-old Sofia Rodriguez told her story about helping during a neighborhood emergency when Mrs. Garcia was bitten by a copperhead in her garden. I ran to get my parents, and we called the Foundation hotline. The response team got there in 15 minutes with anti-venom, and she's okay now. Sophia's quick thinking and knowledge of emergency procedures had been crucial for ensuring that Mrs. Garcia received appropriate medical treatment quickly enough to prevent serious complications. The incident demonstrated how children could become valuable parts of community safety networks when properly educated and trained. The community that had formed around Lily's rescue and Steele's transformation represented something unprecedented in rural safety services, a sustainable collaboration between combat veterans, civilian families, medical professionals, and educational institutions that had created measurable improvements in emergency response throughout the region. Local emergency room physician Dr. Michael Thompson spoke about the practical impact of the Foundation's work during the anniversary celebration. Before Steele's programs, we treated an average of 8 venomous snakebite cases per month during peak season, he testified. We've had only 2 cases in the past 6 months, and both patients received anti-venom treatment within 30 minutes of being bitten. The statistical improvement represented real families who had been spared the trauma, medical complications, and financial burden that venomous snake bites typically created. Dr. Thompson's testimony provided concrete evidence of the Foundation's impact on community health and safety. Sheriff Robert Martinez spoke about the Foundation's contribution to public safety from law enforcement perspective. Steele's rapid response teams have assisted with 17 emergency calls in the past 6 months, he reported. Their expertise in snake identification and emergency medical treatment has been invaluable for protecting our rural residents. The The sheriff's endorsement was particularly significant because it demonstrated how the Foundation's work complemented, rather than competed with traditional law enforcement and emergency services. The veterans' specialized training filled gaps in rural emergency response that conventional services couldn't address effectively. If you're enjoying the story, write from which city you are listening to in the comments. 2 years after Steele's 60-second encounter with the diamondback rattlesnake, the Lily Martinez Snake Safety Foundation had been recognized by the Texas state legislature as the most effective rural safety organization in the state, with programs that had prevented an estimated 63 serious injuries and at least 18 potential fatalities. The legislative recognition came in the form of House Resolution 247, which officially commended the Foundation's work and authorized state funding for expanding its programs to all rural counties in Texas. The resolution was sponsored by State Representative Maria Rodriguez, whose own family had been helped by the Foundation's emergency response services. The Lily Martinez Snake Safety Foundation represents the best of Texas values: neighbors helping neighbors, veterans serving their communities, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things to protect children and families. Representative Rodriguez stated during the resolution presentation ceremony at the state capitol in Austin. The legislative recognition led to state funding for expanding the Texas Venom Response Network to all rural counties in Texas, creating the first veteran-led venomous snake safety service in the United States. Steele's individual act of precision had grown into a statewide program that employed over 40 veterans and served thousands of families annually. The expansion presented significant organizational challenges that required Steele to develop management and administrative skills that complemented his tactical training. The Foundation's growth from a local volunteer organization to a statewide service required systematic planning, quality control, and sustainability measures that would ensure continued effectiveness. Lily, now 6 years old, and recognized as the youngest snake safety educator in America, had been invited to address the National Rural Safety Conference in Austin. Her transformation from victim to advocate represented the kind of growth that effective mentorship and purposeful activity could inspire. 2 years ago, I learned that scary snakes can hurt people, but I also learned that good people will help children when they're in danger. Lily told the state audience with remarkable confidence for her age. Steele taught me that being scared is okay, but learning about dangers and helping other people is better. Lily's presentation at the state conference included a demonstration of basic snake identification skills and emergency response procedures that impressed the audience of safety professionals and government officials. Her natural teaching ability and genuine enthusiasm made safety education accessible and engaging for audiences of all ages. Steele's transformation from isolated, struggling veteran to nationally recognized rural safety expert had attracted attention from veteran services organizations, emergency management agencies, and trauma treatment professionals throughout the country who wanted to understand how his model could be replicated. The Foundation's success had led to invitations for Steele to speak at conferences and workshops throughout the United States, sharing his experience with veteran groups, emergency services organizations, and rural communities facing similar challenges with venomous wildlife and inadequate emergency response capabilities. Jake Morrison's story demonstrates that combat veterans can find healing and purpose through civilian service missions that apply their military training to community protection, commented Dr. Robert Williams during state legislative hearings on veteran services. His foundation shows how individual acts of precision can grow into programs that serve entire rural populations. The state-level attention had led to requests for technical assistance from rural areas in 8 states as emergency services and veteran organizations wanted to develop similar programs that combined military expertise with civilian safety education. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Lily asked audiences during her speaking engagements, challenging them to understand their potential for helping others in dangerous situations. The question had become Lily's signature way of engaging audiences and encouraging them to think about their own capacity for heroic action. Her innocent delivery of the challenge often prompted emotional responses from adults who realized they had never seriously considered their ability to help others in emergency situations. If you've watched this far, say in the comments, what secret do you keep? 5 years after Steele's life-changing encounter with the diamondback rattlesnake, the Lily Martinez Snake Safety Foundation had grown into a regional organization with programs in 4 states, providing venomous snake safety education and emergency response capabilities throughout America's most snake-dense rural areas. The Foundation's expansion had been carefully managed to maintain quality standards while adapting programs to different geographic regions and cultural contexts. Each new state chapter was required to complete extensive training and certification programs before being authorized to operate independently. Steele continued to serve as the Foundation's executive director while maintaining his special relationship with Lily, who had become not just his inspiration, but his partner in expanding snake safety education to serve hundreds of thousands of rural families annually. The partnership between Steele and Lily had evolved into a unique collaboration where the veteran's tactical expertise was balanced by the child's natural teaching ability and emotional intelligence. Their joint presentations had become legendary in rural safety education circles. Lily, now 8 years old and a regionally recognized advocate for rural safety and veteran services, was pursuing advanced safety training while maintaining her role as the Foundation's youth spokesperson and education coordinator. Her advanced training included junior first aid certification, basic wildlife biology, public speaking skills, and leadership development that would prepare her for expanded responsibilities as the Foundation continued growing. Steele and the Foundation Board were committed to ensuring that Lily's involvement remained age-appropriate while recognizing her unique contributions. The lesson I learned that day wasn't just that good people exist when you need help, Lily told audiences at the International Rural Safety Conference in Dallas, speaking with wisdom that exceeded her years. The lesson was that everyone has the responsibility to learn about dangers and be prepared to help others, and that scary experiences can teach us how to protect people we care about. Lily's presentation at the international conference included statistical analysis of the Foundation's work, personal testimonials from families who had been helped by their programs, and a call to action for expanding veteran-led community service programs throughout rural America. The Foundation's statistical impact was impressive. Over 50,000 families trained in snake safety, 35,000 children educated in awareness skills, 25,000 adults certified in emergency response, and documented prevention of over 200 snakebite incidents that could have been serious or fatal. But the human impact was even more significant. Steele's model had provided purpose and healing for over 60 combat veterans while creating safer rural environments for countless families who could now work and play in snake habitat with appropriate awareness and protective networks. The Foundation's work had influenced federal policy discussions about veteran services, rural emergency response, and wildlife management. Steele had been invited to testify before congressional committees studying innovative approaches to veteran reintegration and rural safety challenges. The Foundation demonstrates that America's veterans represent an untapped resource for addressing civilian challenges that require precision, dedication, and the willingness to serve others, Steele testified before the House Veterans Affairs Subcommittee on Health. Military training translates directly into civilian protection capabilities when veterans are given appropriate opportunities to serve. 10 years after a former Marine had heard a child scream and responded with 60 seconds of perfect precision, Steele Morrison and Lily Martinez continued to serve together as partners in a mission that had grown far beyond their individual survival story. Their foundation had trained snake safety teams in 12 states and had influenced national policies for rural emergency services and veteran reintegration. The backyard where Lily had faced the diamondback rattlesnake had been converted into the Lily Martinez Rural Safety Education Center, a facility that provided training for families, emergency responders, and veterans, while serving as a memorial to the precision that ordinary people could demonstrate when children needed protection. The education center included classroom facilities, outdoor training areas, live animal exhibits featuring non-venomous species, medical training equipment, and residential facilities for veterans participating in extended training programs. The facility hosted over 10,000 visitors annually and had become a destination for safety professionals from throughout North America. Tell me, have you ever saved someone? Steele's story asked everyone who heard it, challenging them to understand that heroism wasn't just for people with special training, but for anyone willing to act decisively when someone needed help. The question had become central to the Foundation's philosophy and educational approach. Steele and Lily believed that everyone had the capacity for heroic action when properly prepared and motivated, and their programs were designed to build that capacity in individuals and communities. The solitary biker who had stopped everything to kill a venomous snake with garden tool precision had created a legacy that continued to protect families throughout America's rural areas. Steele's story demonstrated that military precision could transform not just individual encounters, but entire communities, and that 60 seconds of perfect action could generate decades of life-saving programs. Steele and Lily's partnership proved that heroes could emerge from the most unexpected encounters, that combat training could serve noble civilian purposes, and that when good people commit to protecting others, individual acts of precision can grow into movements that save countless lives and transform entire regions. Their work had inspired similar programs in other countries facing challenges with venomous wildlife and rural emergency response. The Foundation regularly hosted international visitors and provided technical assistance to organizations developing veteran-led community service programs in Australia, South Africa, Brazil, and other nations with significant rural populations and dangerous wildlife. The legacy of that 60-second encounter between a former Marine and a diamondback rattlesnake would continue for generations, proving that sometimes the most important battles are fought not on foreign battlefields, but in backyard gardens where innocent children need protection, and that the most precise shots are those that save lives rather than take them.